Hey guys, and welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to set up Voicemeeter Potato. Even though it seems complicated at first, it's actually pretty simple to use. As I'm also going to simplify how Voicemeeter Potato actually works. I'm also going to show you how to use the EQ within Voicemeeter Potato. And towards the end of the video, I'm actually going to show you also how to set up Voicemeeter Potato for Discord and how to set up Voicemeeter Potato for OBS. But first guys, if you want, you can go down on this video in the comment section and click on the first comment that I pinned. This will bring you to my Fiverr, and here you can get a YouTube logo and banner or a modern minimalist YouTube logo and banner for your YouTube channel. But now back to the video. Now as you can see, I have Voicemeeter Potato here ready to go. If you don't have it yet, actually up here in the right corner I have a tutorial on how to download and install Voicemeeter Potato step by step, in case you don't have it yet or might run into some problems and don't really know how to actually download and install it. I'm also going to show you how to download and install the virtual cable, which is also something we're going to use in this video. So in any case, if you need any help with that, go check out that video. Now first, before really getting into the software, I'm going to go down here and right click on the sound icon here. Then we're going to do sound settings. As you can see here are all the outputs and here are all the inputs. And so actually going to go all the way down here to more sound settings. Here you can see, same we have the playback here, so this is going to be our output once again. And here you want to really pay attention to these three here, so the Voicemeeter AUX or AUX, of course you can also say. This Voicemeeter input right here and the Voicemeeter VAO3 input. So those three are going to be the most important one here. Those are going to be our virtual inputs and also outputs. I'll show you that later. And basically, so if you want to use this as an output, you're actually going to select Voicemeeter input. So even though it says input, you actually want to use that as your output, as your speakers here. You click on set default and then click apply. And it's the same idea if you go to recording here, which is going to be your input in this case. And so same here, this is the equivalent. So this is basically the same thing, but in this case, of course, the input version of the Voicemeeter virtual input, which is going to be the out B1, B2 and B3. Now here, it depends which one you're going to use. The most important one is going to be actually right click here, select properties, go to advanced here, and make sure it's on 2-channel 24-bit, 48,000 Hertz right here, studio quality. You can also go for the DVD quality. Both are advised generally speaking, but the most important part is really that you do 48,000 Hertz right here, no matter if that's DVD or studio quality. But those two are mainly the ones I would advise you to use. Once again, hit apply then OK. So just keep that in mind, same for the Voicemeeter input right here, that you do that. Then actually when I'm back here, I also want to advise you to go to the communications tab here, and you can actually select, this is optional rather, but it's nice if you select do nothing here. Do nothing is basically when incoming sounds, like for example calls right here as they use as an example, basically also an alarm on your PC to actually reduce the volume of any sounds, in this case by 80%. Now if you want to have control over the sounds all by yourself, because of course we're going to use Voicemeeter here, you can decide to do nothing, but then you will be entirely in control over how to manage the actual volumes of different audio sources. So that's really just basically you making the decisions of how loud and how quiet this noise will be. So it's something that I could advise you to, but isn't that important either. So then when we're back here, we're actually just going to go to volume mixer here. I'm going to look at these ones right here, the apps. Now I only have OBS opened here, but if I do, for example, Spotify, Discord, they would also appear here. And basically what you can do the little arrow here and select output and the input device. Same as you can see, we have the same outputs here as we had earlier. And as you can see, these are all audited by Voicemeeter Potato itself. For the moment, we don't really have to touch this. As you can see right here, input as well. We will do that later on. That's not the most important part right now, but just know that within Windows, you can actually also change the source, the audio source in terms of input and output right here in Windows. So there you go. I did want to mention that about the sound within Windows because it's quite important. But now, of course, we're here in Voicemeeter Potato itself. As I said, the UI, so the layout may seem complicated, but really it's actually easier than it seems. And so don't worry, I'm going to break this down one by one. So here as you can see, we have the first 5 stereo inputs. So here you have 1 to 5, and those are physical inputs, like for example your microphone and your headset. Now these can actually be linked to the output. So this is the input as I said, and here we have the output. As you can see right here, the little A1 to A5. So these here can be connected to these 5 right here, because these are also physical, but in this case physical outputs. Now here as you can see, we have 3 individual virtual inputs. So these are the inputs for the virtual apps, such as of course Discord, Spotify, even your Chrome browser for example. And so once again on the right side, we also have B1, B2, B3. So these actually correspond to the 3 virtual outputs. So once again, these are the 3 virtual inputs and those are the 3 virtual outputs. So that's also what we saw earlier in terms of the input and output for the microphone. They actually correspond to these right here, but I'll show you that in practice so that you can understand that better. My Voicemeeter, as you can see, is actually blank right here. I didn't do anything. You can basically do that by going to menu and do reset settings. In case you had anything, there you go, you can simply reset it. While I'll show you the menu, I also quickly want to mention that you can do system tray and run on Windows startup if you actually want Voicemeeter to start up when you actually start up your computer, so Windows, if that is something you want, of course. Now it's also quite important if I go down here and we click on system settings, make sure this right here, as you can see here, it's selected to 48,000 Hertz. Once again, make sure it's 48,000. I think 44,100 is not enough. You can put it a bit higher than this, and this of course is a bit too much when it gets over like 88,200 Hertz. So really mostly in terms of like recording vocals or even in the world of making music, it always, generally speaking, is on 48,000 Hertz. So first of all, really make sure it's on that one. Now then, if you have a problem with latency, you can actually go up here, and as you can see the MME and WDM, I will show you that. You can basically click on it. It will actually give you a message. Now this message will show you that basically it does normally have to work, and that you really only have to put down the settings if it's needed. You can just click OK. And basically here you can change it. And the less you do, so the more you go down here, the less latency there will be. Now latency is, for example, whenever you're recording vocals, but you hear yourself like 1 second later. That means you have a lot of latency. Same for guitar, if you strum like a chord, and you only hear the chord like a couple of milliseconds or a second later, that means that there's a lot of latency in that case. So the lower you put this, the less you're gonna have that delay, if you will, between you saying that word or strumming that chord and it actually being on the output a couple of milliseconds or a second later. So that's basically how fast it reacts, if you will. And so here you can do it for individual channels. And basically the MME is going to be the output and the WDM, generally speaking, is going to be the input. So the microphone, and this is the speakers, for example, in case you want to touch upon these two. But that's really in case you actually need to do that. So then you can actually close this right here. So if you have the output channels right here, as I said, the physical and the virtual outputs here, what you can also do, you click on normal mode. You click until you see stereo repeat. That's something I could advise you to do, since there's actually more of that stereo quality, so that's of course always nice to have. So that's actually what I'm going to do here, because I know I'm going to use these 4 channels here. This is going to be my microphone, because it's physical, and these 3 are going to be Discord, OBS, and basically my Chrome browser. So that's why I already put these to stereo repeat. It's optional, but it does help. So talking about output, we're actually going to add one. I'm going to put that simply to A1 right here. I'm going to make sure it's on MME here, multimedia, and I'm simply going to do my speakers right here. You can also do your speakers of your microphone here, but then in that case you have to plug in your headset, so your headphones, in your microphone. But if you just want it to be in your headphones and your computer and your speakers, basically you select this one. And it's also in order to hear yourself. If you actually want to hear yourself talk, select this one, of course. And now here you can actually go to the hardware input. You can see right here. Now you can actually also right click here and, for example, call this microphone. Why not? It makes it a bit easier. Completely optional, but it's nice. So now I'm actually going to add my microphone, my input. And so I actually do that by showing you also how it sounds raw, like it just came out of the box without any effects on it. Because now I have some effects on my voice, but I will actually remove everything and show it to you with a raw sound so that you can actually see how it will affect my voice. So basically, as you can hear right now, it sounds pretty raw because there's no effects on my voice. And basically what I did here is to add the input. As you click here, you do WDM in this case and select the microphone in question you're using. I'm using the Blue Yeti microphone, so I select this one right here. But in your case, of course, you're going to select the microphone in question you're using and close this. And as I said, as you can hear, I just use my microphone Blue Yeti right now, like I just got it out of the box. I actually also, by the way, up here changed the output from the speakers right here, as you can see, to the cable input, just something I actually asked you to download in that video. So that will actually work as a virtual cable, basically. And so I currently don't hear myself, but I can still use my microphone right here to go through. So that's basically, if you don't constantly want to hear yourself, just make sure that you put the output on MME right here once again, and then on cable input. And so basically what I immediately want to show here is actually the voice effects that you have right here. So as you can see here, I place it towards here, you can hear that my voice gets a lot deeper, some more bass in there. Now here on the contrary, if I put it right here, it gets thinner, way thinner. And here up here, you have like an echo effect. Of course, that's very optional to use. It really depends if you actually want to use that. In most cases, of course, you just want to keep it around here, but there might be some cases where you want to use it up here, the echo, for some specific reason. But of course, generally speaking, you want to be maybe around here if you want some bass. Otherwise, you can put it around here so that you also have some more higher frequencies in there. I think in the past I generally had it maybe somewhere around here. You know, so that's really something up to you, what you think sounds nice. You can use the voice effect, you don't have to, but it could be nice if you just want to add a little quick effect on your voice. And you can actually also double click here to reset it, and you can also right click, and this will add modulation. As you can hear, it basically just adds a modulation effect to your voice. So same, that's going to be made for some specific reasons you want to use that. Now if you right click again, you actually have the panning. So if I put it right here, you're going to hear me solely in your left ear, and if I'm going to put it back right here, you're going to hear me only in your right ear right now, as you can hear. So that's panning in case you need that. You can double click to reset it once again, and here you can basically put it a bit higher up as well if you want to use it like in a 3D graph for some reason. But then we just right click again and we're back to basics here, to the voice effects panel. Now here we have the first tab, which is going to be compression. Now don't go over 2 first of all, because that's going to be quite loud. I don't want to get this too loud either. Now what you can actually do, you can actually right click to get a more detailed, as you can see right here, graph. Now what I'm first going to do here is actually put the threshold to like -18, somewhere around there. I'm going to put this to 1.5. As you can see, it's already a bit better. Now it compresses the sound so that you don't go too loud or too quiet. It basically compresses the voice in a way. Compression is pretty hard to explain. It's pretty advanced. But if you have some basic settings here, you can also do the input gain. That basically makes it louder, the input gain. But only do that if it's very quiet for some reason. And as I said, the ratio here, you have an idea, maybe 1.5 or 1 to like -18 as a threshold. The attack time in general, I advise you to put it quite low actually. Maybe towards here, towards the beginning. And same for the restime. You don't have to do that too much. It really depends. And same here, you also have an output gain if you want. The certain gain basically the volume comes out as an output. But that of course is very optional. That's really in case you want to start using compression as well while using Voicemeeter Potato. So if I just double click this, there we go, it's back to normal. And basically here, if you go to the noise gate, you can put up the noise gate a bit, but it will cut off your voice at some point. So I'm actually gonna exaggerate it to show you what I mean. As you can see here, you're probably not gonna hear every word I'm saying. Maybe you do, but I doubt it. And so as you can hear, if you put too much gate on your voice, it's gonna cut off and it's gonna be pretty bad. Now as you might have seen as well, down here you also have, for the gates, you can also see the details. And so here threshold, you can put like at -45, for example. Damping, like -15, so it cuts off less frequent, somewhere around there, -18 maybe. And then say, I keep the attack time and release time quite short. It's really up to you once again. If you want to check that out, if you want to try that to a certain degree, you can always try that out. Then of course you can double click again, make sure everything has been reset again. And then right click on the button again to bring us back here to the basic layout. And I also of course thirdly wanted to mention the denoiser. The same idea is a bit to actually remove the background noise as well to a certain degree. It's of course where these are used for. Now if you do this, if you put this up too much, it's actually gonna muffle your sound in this case. So it's not actually gonna cut off your voice, but it's rather gonna muffle it. And it'll actually reduce the quality of your voice and the recording basically. And so of course you don't want that to be the case. So make sure that same, if you're gonna use this, don't put it up too high. Just test it for yourself, listen to yourself. If you put yourself on ME and then on speakers right here, just hear yourself talk and actually check for yourself to which degree you want to use this. But as I said, as always, don't overdo it. So here you have special effects like reverb here and delay. You can also actually link that to the output right here if you turn them on right here. And that's of course if you want reverb, it adds a lot of, not really echo, you can't really say it like that, but it adds a lot of depthness to your voice. And delay of course is when you hear yourself talk and you hear yourself repeat some words. That's basically the delay. Now I'm not really going to use those. Of course those are options that are available to you. Same here for the external effects. You can also check it out if you want. You have to put them up a bit. And then same here, you can actually do the return here. Of course make sure you also do the return of the external effects right here. Now here, if I remember earlier, as I said, I mentioned that the A1 to A5 are the physical inputs, which are right here. The A1 to A5 outputs right here for physical, and the B1 to B3 outputs here for virtual. And so basically by clicking and unclicking these right here, you can actually link them right here. Because as you see, if I do B1 here, you can see when I talk, you can actually also see it here. But if I unselect B1, you can see it will stop right here and it will no longer be linked to this one right here. And A1 you generally want to use if you want to hear yourself, if you of course did speakers to A1 in that case. So generally speaking, you want to make sure that A1 is selected. Of course as well, if you're using a microphone and specifically only hear it in one ear, you want to make sure it's on mono. You don't always have to do that, but generally speaking, because you have a microphone and some of the inputs of the microphone can be in one ear, it could be a fix if you actually put it on mono and thus you hear it in your two ears, obviously what you want. But generally only use mono of course if you're using a microphone as input. Most other cases you don't want to be using mono. And of course in case also you have a mute button here if you want to mute any of these channels right here. And of course also very important, always nice to mention, is we have the volume here. Obviously if I bring it down here, as you can hear, it will get quieter. And if I put it right here up, it's going to get a bit louder. Now, of course, I'm not going to overdo that, but you get the idea. Now, if you would, for example, connect a sound card or mixer to your computer and actually put that through Voicemeeter Potato, you could actually, of course, change knobs like these by using your sound card in question. That's just a little bonus detail that I wanted to explain, because you can actually use Voicemeeter Potato for a sound card, for example. And I might actually do a tutorial about that in the future. Now, as a bonus right here, you can also pull down a limiter right here. Do that by clicking your mouse. And actually also might have to hold control, depends, because sometimes I have to play around with it to actually get it down. But basically, you can see here limiter and basically will limit the voice. In this case 1 dB, 0 dB, -1. So that's in case you really want to limit your sound that it doesn't go over a certain decibel. So that's always useful if you actually want to use that on the channel. So that once again the sound doesn't get past a certain volume, if you will. Now in this entire channel you can actually also go up here to Intellipan and right click it. And you can actually reset any of the effects, copy them, or save them. So if for example you want to specifically save your compression settings, for example a denoiser, you can actually do that here. Same for of course resetting and copying, in case you only want to specifically remember for example the settings for that compressor like I showed you earlier. So that could always be useful as well. Of course down here you can also load the certain setting in question if you already made one in the past. Okay, so I'm actually going to do one last thing here in the first channel where I put my microphone, and it's actually going to add EQ. Because as I said, I actually also wanted to show you how the EQ system works within Voicemeeter Potato. Just first, simply click it with your left mouse button, so that's activated. So if you see it like this, it means it's enabled, and if it's grayed out, it means it's disabled. So if you're planning on using the EQ, always make sure it's enabled right here. I do also want to quickly mention, if you for example go here to the outputs, same here, if you click on the EQ right here, it's enabled and this is disabled. And same of course for the virtual outputs as well. Just make sure whatever you're using it, it's colored basically. And so if we go back here, you can see it's enabled, and I'm going to right click right now to actually show the graph right here of the EQ. And once again, you can also do that in the outputs here. If you click the EQs right here, it's the same graph as this one right here, but of course for the outputs in that case. So anyway, as I said, as you can see here, we have the EQ graph. I'm simply going to explain you EQ right here. in a very simple way, in case you don't know how EQ works. But I'll show you because it will make your voice better, so that's very important. Anything under 100 right here, so it's going to be 100 hertz in this case, it's going to be very low, very rumble, very boominess. And you basically don't want that. So that's why, generally speaking, you're not going to use anything under approximately 100 hertz. I can actually decide to cut that off and just put that down, like so, for example. Put it down even more. We're not going to do that right now. Flat, by the way, up here if you want to reset it, or actually just double click on it. Basically, I'm not going to show you that right now, but it could be useful if you actually cut off those frequencies. Then right here to 100 to like approximately 200 is also bass, but that's actually a good part that you can boost. So this part right here, I definitely advise you to boost it if you want some lows in your mix. So in terms of vocals, for example, or anything else. This is really going to be the frequency, as I said, between 100 and 200. We're going to boost it. And that's actually something we're going to do. So I'm actually going to put this one right here up to like, I would say like around 140. And then I actually want to boost the middle one right here. And as you can see, it will start making like a bridge right here, you know, it will start coming up, as you can see. And if you want this to actually affect least frequencies, because you can see it affects everything right here, you can actually put this last one right here. And as you can see, if you bring this up, it's going to be a more specific frequency. So it's going to be smaller and affect less frequencies. We're basically just going to keep it at this, for example, because here we are pretty much between 100 and 200. So I'm just going to play around with it a bit. Okay, so there we go. I have some more bass in my voice right now. That's something you like, of course, you can play around with it as well. You can put a bit more in there or a bit less. It's entirely up to you. It is a preference after all, but I always like to have some low ends in my voice in this case. Now, if you continue here, you generally don't really want to touch around 250 right here. Pretty much exactly where it stopped, by the way. Basically around here to, let's say, approximately 400, around there. It can get pretty muffled, the sound, and you definitely don't want that. And same if you go above like 400 right here to like 600, 700, a bit above there. Really around those frequencies, it gets boxed, the sound, and that's also something you don't want. So really make sure, and there are going to be cases you can actually use those frequencies, but generally speaking, specifically with vocals, don't touch anything between like 250 and 700 to, let's say, 800, around there. For that same reason, we're actually going to put this one right here to, let's say, 1500. In this case, we're not going to boost it because this is going to be called boosting frequency, and this is called cutting. I'm actually going to exaggerate this to show you how it actually works, because as you can see, if I boost it right now, my voice changes, but not for the better. Really, I wouldn't put this on my voice, but same if I put it down, it gets to muffle the sound. And basically, that's basically what this frequency does a bit. It actually removes some nasalness in case you have that in your voice. So it can actually be beneficial. But of course, we do want the right settings for that. And that means we also don't want to do this too much. Maybe around here. Let's say something like that. And so as I said, that really removes, it's the mid-range basically, what you can see here, and it really removes the nasalness, for example, in your voice. Then I'm actually going to go to the high range, which is anything really above 2000, 2500, we're really going to get into the high range. For that reason, I generally like to put it like at 2100 hertz, around there, once again, because I think it's a pretty sweet spot. Now, it could be for my voice microphone, but that really depends also on your voice microphone, because of course we could have the same microphone, but we do have different voices. So really adapt this to your voice. That's also why you don't have to copy what I'm doing right now. You can take inspiration from it. But generally speaking, I would really advise you not to copy these settings, because it's going to be very specific to your voice. For you, it might sound different or even bad. So really just listen to yourself speak. Once again, put your A1 as a speakers to actually hear yourself and actually see if you like the changes you're doing. But anyway, we're going to do a small boost right here. So I'm going to put this a bit higher, so there's more clarity in my voice, so you can actually hear it a bit clearer. There you go. Put this quite high, like 16, so it generally just affects only that small percentage here, so we don't want to overdo it. And as I said, like around 205 here, and I said about 2.4 dB here, of course in volume. Then actually gonna put this to 4000 rather, which also of course is very high frequency. Gonna only do a small boost here, I would say, like that. As I said, a pretty small boost here, because it's already pretty high frequency. It just adds some bit more high end, if you will. And then at last here, actually gonna put this a bit up, and this also, because this is basically gonna add the airness, the openness to the mix. I'm actually also going to specifically set that to this one right here. So as you can see, it becomes like, as I said, that open effect where it actually opens up the mix a bit. There we go, somewhere around there. And so as you can see, this is really an idea on how you can actually do the EQ, in this case on your voice. And to actually hear the difference, if you will, I can actually go back here and actually just click on this. As you can see now, I actually remove the EQ. And if I click on it again, here as you can see, I put the EQ on again. So that actually gives you an idea on how it sounds with and without. And as I said, really don't take this and just copy it. I admit it is not perfect what I did either. Could have done it maybe a bit better here. But it definitely gives you a general idea on how the EQ works and the different frequencies you have to look out for. So do keep this in mind, because it's very important. As I said, you can just close this if you want. Okay, so now I'm actually back with my original voice and effects. And now I'm actually going to show you how to use the virtual inputs by, for example, playing music in Google Chrome or any other web browser or search engine. And I basically have some ambient music right here from the channel Fantasia Echoes. And so this is going to be our desktop audio. So basically the audio within Google Chrome, specifically YouTube. Actually also want to be sure if you go actually right down here and just click on the volume right here. And then actually you want to go here to the select a sound output. I'm actually going to go all the way down here to the Voicemeeter VAO free input. input. VB audio Voicemeeter VIO. Now this basically is going to refer to this one right here, as you can see, specifically this one. So from the 3 virtual inputs there are, it's going to go specifically to this one. If I put that as a output right now. So there you go, and if I play some of the music. And so basically if I play some of the music right here, as you can see if I go back to Voicemeeter Potato, it has actually been connected to the Voicemeeter VIO3, as you can see, so the virtual input. As you can see right here, Google Chrome, we can see it. We have some volume meter here. And since we put it to A1, as you can see right here, and B1, it's actually visible to us, as you can see as well. Now actually I have a EQ, so as we saw earlier, but we have one just underneath here that we can actually also change if you want to change the sound. And of course what we can also do is actually put on the volume a bit, as you can hear, or just make it quieter. So I'm going to put it up a little bit here, place it around here for example, because it's already quite quiet. And here for example we can do the treble, just like the higher frequencies. As you can hear, it gets pretty clear. Then we can also do the mids right here. And of course the bass. As you can see, there's a pretty clear difference. If I put it around here, there's pretty much no bass, only more like the mids and the high ends. And if we put it up again, it's going to be a lot of bass right there. But that of course is going to be in case you want to actually use the EQ that is within these virtual inputs right here. So basically for this video right here, I'm actually going to put it to the B3 right here, as you can see. So I'm actually going to use B1 for Discord later on. But as you can see, I can simply just switch between them, and as you can see now it's in the B3, so as I said, the third virtual output right here. But then there's actually something else I quickly want to mention that is within Voicemeeter Potato, which is of course here the tape recorder, as you can see right here. So this you can actually use for playback. As you can see, of course, make sure it's on 48 Hz and 2 channels here if you're going to use it. Now this actually works like a cassette, if you will. If you're not familiar with that, it actually has multiple playback options. Of course, for example, rewind it backwards or forwards. This is actually a play button, so it's actually to start, for example. This of course is going to be stop, and that is going to be the record button to actually start recording. Now you can actually do that while recording your actual voice. So if you put, for example, the microphone here, as we saw earlier, and you start actually recording your voice, or any other sound, as for example the virtual input right here, as we also saw, you can actually just start recording right here, and then actually just pause it, and actually just also stop the sound. Of course, as you can see now, it's connected to all of the physical outputs and virtual outputs. So basically wherever the sound is going to come from right now, it will actually pick it up and actually save. And so you can just do a fragment of audio, if that's of course something you're interested in, that you can actually save, but that is of course very optional. And actually once, if you actually finish the recording, so if you click on stop here to actually stop the recording, there's actually the second thing you have to do that's very important. It's actually also go to menu here to the settings, and basically you do eject cassette, so to release the audio file, which would have been the same in a physical form if you actually remove the cassette from your cassette player. But now of course we are here in a virtual form, so that's basically the virtual way of actually just ejecting the cassette from the player. So only do that when you're really done while using the cassette, if of course you're planning on using that one. Okay, so now I'm actually going to show you how to set up Voicemeeter Potato for Discord. So if we are in Discord here, you actually want to go down here to the user settings. Make sure you go down here to voice and video. Now as you can see, currently it's on the default input, which is my microphone Blue Yeti, and the default output, which are just my speakers. He actually selected the speakers within my Yeti, but I would have even just chosen these ones right here, which are my normal speakers, for example. But basically, of course, default isn't recommended, and if you do default, it's not going to be picked up by Voicemeeter. Voicemeter is not going to work if you're using, for example, Discord and you also want to use Voicemeter. Now of course, if you want it to be the microphone, as we saw earlier, you want to actually select here Voicemeter out A1, VB audio Voicemeter VIO, as you can see right here. Now if I minimize this, I'm actually going to show you that will actually reference to this one right here. As you can see, A1 right here, so make sure that A1 here is selected, of course, as an input as well. Also here in the output channel, you can also change this right here, of course. It's going to correspond to the microphone right here. So basically, if you're going to put the microphone like I did on A1 right here, just make sure that you select the out A1. Of course, you have the other ones like A2, A3. It's going to be these ones right here in case. For output device, it's a bit different, of course, because you can be whatever you want it to be. But of course, actually in this case, if you want to link it to the virtual channel right here, for example, this one right here, if you're going to put it to a B1, since of course it's a physical, but we want to put it to the virtual one, we can actually also do the out B1 here. I'm going to make sure that only B1 here is selected, as you can see. And of course, B1 here is going to be right this one right here. And so here, for example, we can put the output to, for example, Voicemeeter input, VB audio, Voicemeter VA, AEO, as you can see right here. So that once again would mean that we can actually put it directly to this one right here. For example, select this one, it's going to be to B1 right here in Discord. Right here, if you do a check, well, it's not actually picking up my microphone, but as you can see, we can actually link it right here. If I had the microphone connected here, because I actually changed it, as I said, back to my normal voice right here. As you can see, it did pick it up here in the first virtual input of Voicemeter, and also here it's linked to the B1 channel right here. Now, of course, the other ones that you could do as an output device, of course, is Voicemeeter in 1 to 5, of course, which is going to be the physical ones. We also have the AUX, of course, the AUX input, which is of course going to reference to this one right here. Of course, also down here, the VAIO3, which of course would be this one, but we already have Google Chrome on that one. Could do both of them, but it's easier to distinguish in this case. So that's basically what you want to do in case you're selecting those. But in any case, now I actually wanted to show you how to set up Voicemeeter Potato for OBS. I'm actually going to use this channel right here to do so. So if I actually go to OBS, as you can see, it's the one I'm recording with right now. I'm actually immediately going to go to settings here and to the audio tab. And so right here, as you can see, I'm going to focus on the desktop audio and the mic audio, the first one right here. Now basically, I generally put this to speakers for the desktop audio, so the output, and for the mic I put it at my Blue Yeti microphone as an input. If you want to change those, if you go for example to the input, you can see it's the same ones that we saw earlier. So we could actually do B1 again, but actually in this case we're going to do B2 because on B1 is actually Discord and B3 is actually going to be Google Chrome. So actually going to select Voicemeeter out B2 right here. Of course, once again, make sure on Voicemeter Potato it's selected to B2. And so here, as we go to desktop audio, which is going to be our output, as I said, you can put that to Voicemeter input, the VB audio Voicemeter, VAIO. In this case, what we're actually going to do is of course set it to the AUX right here, as I said earlier, the AUX input. As you can see right here, it has been added in this channel right here, as you can see. You can see OBS here in the middle, and as I said, so I did distinguish Discord, OBS and Chrome. You can also go to the three dots, by the way, here in OBS under the microphone, of course, and go to properties. So there, of course, the device will already be selected in this case on B2. And so basically, if I had the microphone right here right now as the input, I would be able to talk through Discord and OBS and actually listen to, for example, sounds or music through Google Chrome right here. So actually also be able to mute myself in OBS or mute myself in Discord if I have to. Mute the sound here within Google Chrome, for example. And so here you can have easily control, also using some EQ right here. Or of course, as I said beforehand, the other EQs right here. That is a bit more advanced. So that actually can control the sound basically of whatever's coming in and coming out. Now last but definitely not least, so you want of course save the settings. So the preset, basically going to do then is go to menu. I'm going to do save settings. Now it should make a folder of itself. As you can see right here, program files could be called VB, or it might actually also make a folder in your documents, for example, as long as you know where you saved your project. Because as you can see right here, I actually did it in my documents, Voicemeter, and then settings, which is a folder I made myself. And as you can see, this is what it looks like. It's a .xml file, so you can name it whatever you want right here, obviously. And then you click save, of course. And in the future, if you actually already have Voicemeter Potato opened, you can go back to menu, and of course also load settings. You can also do load settings on startup if you want to be more specific. But in the past, I generally already had my settings loaded when I actually started up Voicemeter Potato immediately. Basically, what you can do is go to load settings. Like I said before, Voicemeter might have made a folder, or you can make your own folder. Just make sure that you know where you save those projects. And then of course, you can load, for example, this one. You just double click it, where you click on open right here, and then you'll be able to actually access the settings that you previously saved. There you go, guys. Pretty lengthy video, but I really tried to go over everything Voicemeter Potato has to offer. Really try to break it down for you guys and make it as easy as possible for you guys to actually use Voicemeter after this video. Of course, if you have any questions, of course, make sure to leave them down below. And in case I do hope you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, it would be really nice. Subscribe, would also be really nice. And hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye.